Hey Fred, I know your wife's in labor, but we're going to need you for a few extra hours tonight.
Copy you.
All right, so we want to just welcome Adam Paul, executive producer, creative producer, trading card writer, and also, very important, has a 15 handicap.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Not at all, not at all.
First off, good to be here. I like the vibe. I like the set. It's good to see you. You know, we've had the experience of going to battle. I always think about our career, you know, it's the closest. I wouldn't last past lunchtime in the military. So what we do is the closest I would ever go to battle. So it's good to see you.
It's fantastic to see you. How long has it actually been since I've seen you? It's got to be 10, 11 years?
Maybe. I don't know. With
something
social
like that?
media today, you know, you feel like you see people every day.
But you still haven't, like, changed. You still look like you're, like, young. You've always were, like, the young-looking guy, and you still have remained good-looking. Which,
good genes are good docs.
Yeah, which kind of stinks for me. I've just turned into, like, a Guy Fieri hippie, but you've definitely have kept a great
That's a
look.
Good look. Guy Fieri.
I look like I listen to all kinds of Jimmy Buffett while trying to buy a boat. Looking back at when it all began, what made you want to have a career in entertainment?
I couldn't play point guard in the NBA. I wasn't going to be the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. And I realized, you know, a long time ago, I'd like to be creative.
Yeah.
And I made a choice a long time ago, Aaron, that Harvard was going to manifest itself, that I would get paid to be creative. I was going to go after. And, you know, here I am years later talking to you, and we're going to be talking about reality television and unscripted television and this crazy business. But I certainly didn't set out to do this, but it's been a really fun, wild ride.
When you started theater and acting, probably, and performing, you were at the, if I'm not mistaken, the Williamstown Theater as thing. Yeah. I believe one of your first parts was as the press agent in The Mad Woman of Shiloh.
With Catherine Hellman from Who's the Boss?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I was so nerve-wracked. Yeah. I didn't have one single line, but it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
But it was great. You're around professionals, and you're like, people make a living doing this, and it was incredible.
What did you learn from that made you continue through and gave you the fortitude to continue through in entertainment?
That I'm not a very good actor. I'm like, wow, you know, this will only get you so far. But no, I learned I had potential. There's some raw basic things to learn technique, because the technique would free your creativity. So you learned a little bit of structure, just some guidelines, some principles, you know. As simple as an actor, who are you talking to and what are you trying to accomplish? You know, if you know that, if you can identify that objective in any scene, how you get there is great. That's life, right?
Yep.
You know, and that's what makes the art come to life, and things that are unknown, and be ready of the happy accident. So I've certainly tried to take those kind of founding principles, because now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it, I haven't talked about this in a while. But yeah, my heart was in that performance arena, and I've tried to take those skills into being a producer.
What were some of the things that influenced you when you first started off? Who were some of your influences?
Jeez, you know, I got in one of my first jobs in the business, and you know, I was a stunt driver on a B movie.
Okay.
In Palmdale.
I've known you for this way. I've never heard.
Maybe I'm going too deep. This is too deep.
No, I want to hear this. You were a stunt.
But it was like coming from New York. I grew up in New York, upstate New York. Was living in the city. You know, stuff was going down, and came out to L.A. and I was a PA on a B movie, and thought it was great. And the stunt driver backed out, and I'm like, all right, I slammed an e-brake on in the snow in upstate New York. I can do a 360 in this 82 checker cab that the seatbelt doesn't work. You're just trying to, make another $50 a day. Right. So anyways, my early influences, in reality television, J.D. Roth was certainly, I was there at Three Ball, early days, For Love or Money, Biggest Loser. Seeing these early franchises in the early days of this business when reality TV wasn't really a thing. Those are good creative mentors. He knew how to put together shows.
Nice. You mentioned really quick. You mentioned New York City. Didn't you and I work at restaurants one block away from each other, and I lived right across the street from your restaurant.
I mean, maybe what?
I worked at Gramercy Tavern on 20th
Yes,
between
that's
Park
right.
and Broadway.
I can't believe
And
I
my
forgot this.
apartment was on 21st between Park and Broadway, and I believe it faced your restaurant across the street, right?
Yeah, I worked at Campagna.
Campagna.
Yeah.
And literally you could walk out my steps, cross the
Yeah.
street, and go into Campagna.
But the most important part about this story you're leaving out is that you lived above Stringfellows, the
That's
strip
right.
club.
Exactly. Which I don't think people realize is the best thing ever, because in New York City, you want to be near a strip club because then no crime happens on that street.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
cars are getting broken into, no stuff, because they're out there all night.
Yeah.
So it's actually the safest street to be on.
We used to chuck tennis balls because we were on the second level down at the cabs at 4 a.m.
Shut 'em up.
Anyways, yeah, we have early New York roots.
That's
and,
right. That's right.
And I loved working in the food business. You know, I was a bartender at a high-end restaurant.
Yep.
You know, you're dealing with Summer Redstone, you know, Pierre Salinger's at your bar having a glass of wine. I was fresh out of Syracuse University. And it was interesting. It was fast-paced. You know the Gramercy Tavern.
yeah.
These are elite restaurants. And you were the best thing about the restaurant business is you'd be done by 11. So then you could go out until 4.
Spend every
And you didn't have
tip
to be
you
back
ever
at
made.
work until 4:30.
Exactly.
So it was not a bad way to segue from college into the real world.
Oh, that was one of my favorite
Yeah.
ways to do it. What I got for myself, dealing with a New York City crowd
Mm-hmm.
from behind that 2 foot of mahogany had changed the way that I actually am able to deal
So
with
funny.
people. Was that something you were able to kind of also learn to train you to be a producer, to be able to deal with personalities at that level?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you would probably say you had it too, right?
Yeah.
You've probably been talking to people all your life. It's
Yeah.
a genuine interest to, you want to make money. So the
Yeah.
better you are at your job as a bartender and talking to people and keeping things clean and organizing
Yeah.
the trains on tracks, the better it's going to serve you.
Yep.
And then that's no different than making television in many ways. The better you can keep the trains on the tracks, keep your talent happy, keep your client, the network happy, the better it's going to serve you.
Yes.
And it takes a village, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, although I did like the fact when you're a bartender, it was sort of your own universe. Where on the wait floor, it was chaos. I couldn't deal with that. you
No,
know?
no,
At
no.
least at my own bar, just,
I always felt like when I screwed up on the floor, I had to bring somebody else in to help it. Whereas if I was behind the bar and screwed up, I can always get away with just saying, "I got free drinks for you."
Right,
You know, I
right,
can
right.
fix anything with a free drink.
Right.
Behind the floor, on the floor, you're just like, somebody else got to fix this. What do you feel is one of your best qualities that makes you or makes anyone an effective leader in television?
I mean, this is under the assumption I have some best qualities. It was my understanding there would be no math on this.
Well, hypothetically, you have
I mean,
a
look,
million great qualities.
I appreciate that.
Including, I mean, it's
Can
your
we just talk about
personality.
the first time we met?
Yeah.
Because maybe that will people will understand. It was
Go with it.
I just come out of a meeting down at Shutters in Santa Monica, and I'm there with the 4 guys from The Buried Life, brilliant young men.
Yeah.
I'm there with Howard Owens and Mark Coops, the other team from Revly, I think the name of the company was at that time. Tony DeSanto from MTV, he's the head of MTV. And someone else from development. Anyway, it was a huge, it was like a Game of Thrones big table type thing. And we were going over what the Buried Life was, a show on MTV about these 4 guys who created a bucket list of things they wanted to do in their life, but instead of waiting until they were dead, like the movie with Jack Nicholson,
Yeah.
they said go after it at a young age. Great message and super. They're great kids, or they're young men now.
Yeah.
They're men now.
Yeah, right. They're
Getting
all
older.
40.
But it's a great show concept and a great show. We were in season 2 now. And it was, for everything they had on their list, they wanted to help a stranger along the way. Anyways, their list was extreme. It was like play ball with Barack Obama. It was streak a soccer field, crash a party at the Playboy Mansion. They had, mundane stuff, scream at the top of your lungs from a mountain. So we get to the meeting and we're like, all right, what are we going to do this season? What's on your list? And of course, it was, let's streak a soccer field. Let's do everything big. We couldn't just scream on top of a mountain. It was all these incredible things. And I remember that were really going to be hard to produce for television. Great ideas about how do we film this? How do we get the clearance to be able to broadcast this? because it's different than rules for YouTube or for news or for sports. They don't have the same rules that MTV or news played by. We have to get clearances. We have to have a location release, an appearance release. You can't just put anybody or any place on television. So I remember everyone felt so good at the meeting. And, they were having hors d'oeuvres and who knows. And everyone gets up and leaves and is shaken. I just remember thinking, my God, how are we going to pull this off? Like I was not feeling great, but happy there was some consensus about at least what we were doing. Anyway, so then the mission was set as a showrunner, bring that vision to life with your creative talent, the guys from The Buried Life. And I needed a great line producer to help us manage the budget, help us execute everything. And you were one of the first people we interviewed. And you came in and you told some story about somewhere in some South American country or some crazy situation, and you had to shoot with an alligator, and you figured it out if you could just get the alligator nice and cold or some degree of this, that it wouldn't move. And you didn't tell anybody, but you put the alligator on ice, and then when you had your talent go down and shoot with it, thankfully the talent's arm didn't get bitten off, and nobody knew. The alligator still maybe batted an eyelash. And I'm like, that's exactly what we need on The Buried Life. You got the job, and here we are now on Copy You.
That was that show you just brought up, The Buried Life. That was, in hindsight, it ended up being a show that just spawned so many copycats. It inspired so many people. It really was a groundbreaking series for what it did on MTV. And those four boys, I agree, are just amazing.
They were ahead of their time.
What was one of your favorite memories of that show?
Whew, I mean, there were so many harrowing experiences that, it's funny. Even coming on this show today, I'm like, gosh, how many NDAs am I in danger of breaking today? Because back in the day, we didn't always do NDAs. But I'm not sure what that demarcation line was. But, the best thing about that show, Aaron, was I learned a lot from those guys. I came in and I'd done other shows, but they had a very distinct vision. And for a second, I had to, say, whoa, okay, put your ego aside. And like, wow, this is great, their vision. So, I enjoyed coming to work. It was challenging. We would go over. We would be 3 days past the edit delivery. You'd be like, Adam, having
a meltdown.
Yeah, things would be happening, or we didn't quite know how they were going to get out of jail, or whatever, But it was an authentic experience, and they taught me, different ways to approach music. And, a lot of television at that point was very clean, I would say, and everything was perfect. And those guys brought a much more organic, dirtier approach. And this is, before Facebook and YouTube was like that sort of user-generated content was really mainstream, which is where the marketplace is now. It's much more direct to consumer. They had a much more that approach back then, and the show had a cool feel to it.
Oh yeah.
And so my biggest takeaway and best thing about that was those guys, learning from them and seeing people go after their list in life at a young age.
I agree. That show and those boys, they changed the trajectory of my entire life.
That's cool. Look at you.
Of how they've done it. And I always go back to that. This is a big thing to you as a showrunner. I've done this for 25 years, and we've done every show, every type of reality show. There's all these stories about what happens behind a reality show, and I can tell you that is hands down the most real show I have ever worked on in my entire life. There is nothing that has even come to a close second on how legitimate that show was. Like, when people look back and they're like, did they really break into that? Yeah. They did it. That Vegas trip and that party in that hotel room, that was bigger than any hangover movie. That was bigger than anything I've ever experienced in my life. And
I mean, Dave got married. I kept thinking to myself, why are we really signing this contract? Like, Dave, but he insisted.
Yeah. That was the great thing about them, is they insisted on that real, like, to make it real, and that's why it came across. But I mean, to this day, I still can't believe the stuff that they did and that we got away with. Yeah. But it changed the game. Like, there's so many copycat shows just based on that afterwards. That's one of the ones I'm proud of.
Yeah.
as a creative producer, you help shape the tone of a lot of different shows, and sometimes, again, just by consulting and different things like that. What's one of your most memorable moments where your creative input changed the tone of something?
It's funny. They're all like kids, Aaron. All the shows you do, I mean, you love them all. And I think you have to love them all. And you got to find something that's I would say like an actor, you got to find something that's you in that character. And all these shows, you find something. I mean, but, one that I always loved was, which I don't think I would ever even get a chance to do today, which is another comment, but I had the opportunity to do Legally Blonde, the musical, The Search for Elle Woods, as a showrunner. And it was, when things were sort of, I had different options to do different things at my point in my career. And MTV was like, what do you think about this one? And I said, well, that one is only a pilot. Is that one greenlit the series? She said, yes. I was like, let's do that one. But that being said, it was, they had this brilliant musical on Broadway, Legally Blonde, the musical. And they were searching for the next star. And, being on Broadway as a young guy was always something I dreamed of, but I knew was not really attainable. I was never going to be on Broadway. I'm not that good of an actor. We established this earlier. But I'm like, wow, what a cool show to do, to help bring to life. And I'd just come from doing Biggest Loser and other types of shows where, they won a check, they got the title, but they didn't really have to step into, like, this was a legitimate thing. This person who was going to win this reality show was going to be on Broadway. And Broadway hated us for it. And the last thing they wanted to do was have a reality TV producer from MTV come in and have any role of this process. So it was super challenging, but super rewarding for everybody. And it was, and I remember we were talking about it, to get the job, and NBC had done Grease, You're the One That I Want.
Yeah.
And the show failed. But this one was already greenlit. And I watched a little bit of that, and it's not to put that show down too much, but it helped me get a job. Is Grease, You're the One That I Want, was sort of told, can Broadway find its next star for Grease? And the truth is, nobody in America cares about whether or not Broadway could succeed or not. And we were talking about Legally Blonde, and it couldn't be Ken, these producers who had this great idea for the show, Amanda Lippitz, a brilliant producer from the musical, it was her idea. But the story wasn't hers. It wasn't, hey, Amanda, can you find your next star? It was, can one of these girls' dreams come true? Can someone in America who doesn't have access to Broadway, who dreams of being on Broadway, who loves Legally Blonde, can the dreams come true? So we told it from that perspective, which I think is one of the key things in this business, which often gets lost, is you got to make sure you know your point of view. And so that show was something where that point of view worked, and the show worked and was a bit of a cultural phenomenon at its time. And
nice,
to see that kind of level of talent and to see the careers of people who were a part of that show go on and blossom was a really cool experience.
There are a million descriptions about like what a producer does. What does being a producer mean to you?
I mean, I can just speak about being a producer from sort of, my role as a producer. Generally, I'm either a creative producer where I'm assisting the showrunner or the people really in charge of bringing the show to life from a creative perspective. And, a show on television right now that just came out, $1 Million Secret on Netflix. I was a creative consultant. I was a creative producer on that to help some of the challenges and help some of the narrative with how the story unfolded and whatnot. Or if you're a showrunner, you're the quarterback. You're really, and a showrunner is an executive producer, but there can be executive producers who help get a show sold or have a great idea, but there's always one person on a show. And in film, it's often a director, right? It's not often. It's generally known as the director. And I would say in television, there is a director, but a little more creative control often is in the hands of the showrunner and the executive producer / showrunner, who's really, they're often tasked to bring that idea to life and hire a director, work with a director, make sure the client, the network, they're always the client is happy, make sure your production company that you work for is happy and on budget. And that's generally the role of a showrunner, is to sort of get all those parts together and get it done in a timely manner and whistle while you work. I mean, it's important, these things are interesting. There's no exact science.
So unlike scripted projects that incorporate actors, shows like The Buried Life or Buck Wild, they're showcasing
Buck
people.
Wild. I
right?
forget about these shows.
these are things, and Biggest Loser, these are ones that showcase people being themselves. How difficult is that to manage as a showrunner on a day-to-day basis?
Just the docu-narratives when you're
Yeah,
people are
like
being
dealing with
themselves,
people,
right.
like, because you're usually dealing with talent. Now this talent is actually somebody that's exposing themselves as opposed to somebody that's burying themselves through their art.
Right.
You've got somebody actually giving you their lives.
Yeah.
How difficult is that, and how much responsibility do you have to keep an eye on that?
I would say it's a good question, because there's really there are different genres within reality television. There is competitive reality, which what I came up in. I came up in For Love or Money. These are early dating shows. I came up in Biggest Loser. I came up in Beauty and the Geek. Unanimous. These are competitive reality shows where people are playing a game show.
Yep.
Yes, they're themselves, but there's real structure, as opposed to the docu-narratives. Buck Wild is a multi-narrative docu-narrative. Even Buried Life was a docu-narrative. It was a little more structured, but it was still authentic people in their lives. Breaking Greenville was a show that's a docu-narrative. Real Housewives for people is a docu-narrative on television. I haven't done that show. I'm sure it'd be fun for a day. I remember, so it was a departure for me, and I was like, whoa. But you have to sort of harken back to your bartending skills a little bit, or like those other life skills, just because you have to be loose enough to let your talent, and they are talent, they're on your show, they're to let them do their thing, but you still have a crew of 40 people that are on the clock that have to get a lunch break at a certain time, that need a battery, so you still have to manage, a bit of chaos. And like, for example, Buck Wild, an amazing experience. Rest in peace, Shane Gandy. He was the star. He passed away during the filming of season 2.
Yep.
And he was a great kid. That it was so hard to pull off, because we had these 19-year-old kids who weren't on their phones, who were mudding all day, who were they wanted to find out where their next 12-pack was coming from. Like, great stuff. Then people would get frustrated, and you have to remind yourselves and remind your team, the same reason we cast these guys, and the same reason they're on this show and we're following them, is because the same reason why they're really hard to follow. The same reason it's really hard to wrangle them. You'd wake up every day, you didn't know where they were, and you just send out it was like Mission Impossible. But
Buried Life guys were like that too. Like, there was times you're just like, we don't know where they are. They're asleep in a hotel room somewhere right now.
Yeah.
But when they showed up an hour later, you were ready to go. Like, you know what I mean? But you just had to follow their life.
Well, you're very good at this. I mean, you're a line producer. I don't know if you're making sure the ship is on. You're also keeping guys like me in check. Let's get real. And that's so. And you're very good at that too. I mean, what is your secret sauce as a line producer to sort of to get what you want accomplished, which is let's get this thing done on time, but you also have to know when to pull the reins in or out.
There's a few things. I think early in my career, I wish I would have had more patience with it, or more understanding of the situation, which is what you're talking about, which is understanding who your talent is, and not, I'm looking at it from a very the trains are moving kind of point of view. So everything becomes abstract. People's personalities become the abstract to me. They're like, I don't care what you feel you need to do. You signed a contract and we're moving forward. So when you're young, it's very difficult to understand that. And then in your mid 30s, early 40s, you get put out to like islands, or you get put out to Africa, and you just see them move at their own speed.
Right.
And what are you going to tell this guy in the bush? You're going to yell at him?
Yeah.
He's just going to cut your head off with a machete.
Yeah,
you don't
cue
care.
the alligator.
Yeah, he's like whatever. So that island time, it's a real thing. Like, we would have a 10 a.m. They'd make us push the call time till 10 a.m. and we'd be sitting there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and nobody has showed up. It's like, yeah, they're not awake yet. It was just a real thing. So the understanding that I didn't have to be so rigid, or I couldn't be so rigid, is what I later learned. If you're going to be the creative and you're going to have content that breathes, then it's my responsibility as a line producer to make sure that that budget and that day can breathe in the same way.
You're great.
And the only way to do that is to actually know what you have at the end of every day, what your resources are. I mean, I can never not know what I spent the day before, because that's when people say no. Can I do this? No. What do you mean? Well, it's because I don't know what I have. But if I know what I have, you can say, hey, can we do this? And you can go, well, here's your options.
Yeah.
So that was always my.
Yeah, you always presented options, which is good.
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. I mean, you say that, but then, you guys on the Buried Life, you were used
Sometimes
to it
there's
as a
only
creative.
one option.
Yeah,
Adam, this is your only option.
But there was times
But it
where
was an option.
you would come in and you'd be like, look, I just got out of a meeting with these guys. What do you want me to do? They've decided that today they want to gamble at this and put 100,000.
That was good.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you
good.
like? I get it, guys. We all have to figure this out. But even you, I remember you coming out. It's like, what do you want me to do? Like, we all need to figure this out. And I remember going, okay, yeah, he's leading this.
We
You're right.
made the biggest bet in
we did
Vegas history on a roulette table.
That's right. We did. It was a
we had $250,000 at that bet
Yeah.
we were able to make, and then they lost.
I thought they lost on the last one.
One before the last one.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I had my eyeball on the owner. I remember being mad we didn't have a camera on him. We didn't have enough cameras, and they spun away for him because when they hit their first one to double up, they were trying to get $1 million.
Yep.
I saw as he turned white. But yeah, executive producing and show running, and what we do is you're problem solving often in the real world.
Yep.
And in these docu-narrative shows that we deal with now, and when it's not in a studio, you're dealing with their lives. And I remember from Breaking Greenville, Pam, the star of the show. We're 6 episodes of 8 episodes in, and she's like, Adam, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm done. And I'm like, Pam, I said, if this was a scripted show, I could kill you. And right now I'd like to, but this is not a scripted show. I can't kill you. And I distinctly remember having this talk with her. We were outside a newsroom in Greenville, Mississippi, market number 198 of 204 in the news markets around the country. It was a great show. And I said, that's fine. But then ultimately, they have to be right. So I leaned in. I said, okay, fine, Pam. You don't want to do the show anymore. I can't kill you. I don't want to, even though I would like to. And I said, you tell me how you want your ending to be. Then let's help me wrap up your on-screen narrative. You agreed to go on this journey with us. And fine. Like, you just basically have to give in. And then she came around. But yeah, that's the story about dealing with docu-narrative.
What qualifies as excellence to you on a set?
Never thought about it that way, Aaron.
Mm-hmm. How do you think of it?
The unexpected. Excellent. Like, true excellence is when you create this sort of the scenario for something to happen, and you get something that you never even imagined that's even better. That is like excellent. Like the reaction, or this person lost, or this person won, or this happened, or the kiss happened, or that's those. You can feel it. There's moments in Buck Wild when I'm out there in the trailer park, and there's a confrontation happening between a bunch of 20-year-olds, and there's things that are being said that are native to that area, and you're like, wow, none of us imagined this. Or someone winning something in Biggest Loser, or a guy picking up a girl in Pickup Artist. It's those things that are excellent.
The way that you just then described that, as a producer, does it affect you when you are a part of those big moments, like a big moment in Biggest Loser where somebody's going through that in real life, or as you said with Buck Wild? How does it affect you as a producer having to be a part of that? Or are you able to separate it because you're doing a job?
I mean, can I just say first off, I'm getting some James Lipton vibes here.
What's your favorite word?
I'm so nervous for the 10 questions that are coming or whatever. Chocolate.
By the way, you want a donut?
Yeah.
We can do a donut while you're answering because they're the
Yeah.
best part of having a set.
That's fun. I keep eyeballing those things.
Grab them. That's what they're there for.
The
I love having a donut while I'm sitting talking like this.
I mean, you get when sort of those eureka moments happen. Is that
Yeah, or like a special moment. You were just talking about like the real moment, somebody quitting or somebody on Buck Wild going through it. You have to kind of be a part of it and bring them down. They're
You're
going
vested,
through.
you're in it.
That's what
You're
I'm saying.
there,
So you're now,
emotionally,
yeah.
You know, for these things to really work well, I feel like you need that showrunner or that creative producer who is emotionally invested. And there's a ton of great producers in this business. You're hiring a great story producer who's emotionally invested because they're the ones who are day to day doing the interviews. So you have to build that confidence. You know, if you're not going to feel that joy of their victory, how is the viewer at home on the couch going to feel it? So that's it. You're in it with them. And, the hardest part about that is saying goodbye after the show. As I'm sure you can attest to, so many of these shows, again, I'm not comparing it to war. I'm too much of a wimp to ever last a day in the military. Being in reality television is as close I'll ever be to going to battle because I have a walkie-talkie. But when you go to battle with these people, with the talent, with the cash, at the end of the day, you're on a shared mission.
Yeah.
They agreed to be a part of it. You agreed to film them. And so when those things happen, you're all emotionally invested and you feel it.
All sets are unpredictable at any given time, and even the easiest of sets can have an element of danger. Mm-hmm. What's one of the most dangerous situations that you feel that you've been in on a set?
Oof.
And that's very much my James Lipton-esque.
Yeah. Danger. I mean, there's all kinds of danger rears its head in many forms. The danger of losing my job
that's the
if
best
something
one.
doesn't happen.
The danger of being taken off the call sheet.
Running through the mountains of Idaho on a show called Survivalist that felt very dangerous at certain times. We're up in these mountains I was an embedded producer with a family for 3 days, and you're racing across these mountains, and you're also trying to make sure your cameraman can film, and you're filming, and occasionally going backwards, and I'm like, I need to be more careful. That was physical danger. Then there's, Hollywood danger. You're watching a show and we're in the 3rd episode and it's not quite going right. And why is the head of the network here? Uh-oh. Wait, there's a lot of aggressive whispering conversations happening over there. And then you find out the next day the show's canceled. So there's different levels of danger. Yeah.
I like the aggressive whispering. That's like the biggest sign that somebody's something's happening when you see aggressive whispering.
Oh yeah, that's when you go right back to the craft service table. Yeah. Sometimes things are best working themselves out.
Was there ever a moment where something went completely the wrong way, but it ended up being great for the show and you kept it in?
I remember a guy on The Pickup Artist. Sometimes you get some arcs where someone who starts off really bad and then they win.
Yeah.
And this guy in The Pickup Artist, and it's a show that would never be made today, and I get it. But, with these people, I saw it prove itself out. We took lovable losers, people who just didn't have the confidence to talk to females. In Mystery, this guy taught them how to approach women.
His name was Mystery?
Yeah, the Mystery method. My first wife at the time, when I was doing research, ripped up the book during an argument. And I was like, babe, I'm just doing research. I'm not trying to learn this, literally. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But, there was we saw one guy who was really bad. He couldn't even talk to anybody in the very first episode. He had an organic ground zero start to our social experiment. And by the end, he had full confidence, was able to have the confidence to approach the woman of his dreams, and he met the girl of his dreams. So, it was like, we didn't expect him to be that bad. I remember, that was a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have cast him. Maybe he's so bad it's never going to be any improvement. And he ended up having this great arc.
That's great. That's cool.
I mean,
yeah,
might be too perfect of an answer, but
without naming any talent, what was the wildest request you ever got from talent?
can we shoot this video tomorrow? As in like 12 hours later at this level. Sure.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course we can.
No, and that's fine. It was Mariah Carey. It was YG was leaving town. She had this passion song, I believe was the name of the song. And, we had experience working with her for the Christmas special, and she wanted to get this video done tomorrow before he left. And she, you can't just grab your friend's camcorder for her.
Yeah.
You have to, it has to look good. It has to
Yeah.
have the right kind of lighting, and there are certain things that she needed, and you have to come up with a vision and get a director and get a DP and, and get a grip stand and all that jazz and a microphone. And we pulled it off. But that was one of the craziest requests. But we pulled it off, and she was amazing. And, she had a vision, and also it started raining during our shoot, but she leaned into it, and you realize like she's a pro for a reason.
Nice.
So that was a pretty crazy request, and it was very stressful.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that one.
Having already achieved success and different things like that, what today in our industry keeps you moving forward creatively?
What's next? I mean, a producer like myself, we're qualified to do many things, but we don't have the qualifications to do anything. So what else am I going to do?
In any other city, I'm driving cab.
Yeah, right? And I'm still turned on by what turns other people on. And I'm too prude to do anything else other than try to entertain people in a slightly clean way or have fun. And I would also say, Aaron, that it's always a bit of all the shows I've done, whether it's Buck Wild or Breaking Greenville or having a chance to do a Mariah Carey video or Christmas special, the social experiments for me are always the ones that get me out of the bed the most and still sort of drive me in things that then they're endless questions, right? So social experiment type shows.
Nice.
That haven't been done, and things that we can do and ask and try to get people to reveal their authentic selves.
As a producer, how do you personally look for trends that the audience is hungry for? Is it something that you can try to achieve and work for, or is it sometimes just luck?
I mean, luck always plays a part, but we can't go to work every day hoping for luck, right?
Yeah.
So we
Well, there are producers that do.
yeah, yeah. Look, the current marketplace certainly tells you what is working, right? I mean, you go to Netflix top 10. What is winning awards? What are what are people buying? A lot of people come when they're trying to sell shows or pitch me shows, or if I'm pitching a show, we often think, I've got the most interesting show. It's this show about Aaron Waiton. He's this great guy.
We're not greenlighting that one.
Yeah, no, you're blacklisted. But no, you got to see he's got this great spot and this. But you have to. It's not yet. There has to be a marketplace. Who's going to buy it? You have to sort of backwards engineer. So what is Netflix buying? What is Disney Plus buying? What is Apple buying? Are you going to develop a show that only has one potential buyer, or you can develop a show that has 5 potential buyers? You can do whatever you want, but developing a show takes skin in the game. So it's a little bit of what's the state of the union. I mean, what is top 10 on Netflix right now? For example, we're working on a show. It's like, okay, well, there's one show I'm working on. It has to name nameless. And at first felt a little dated. But we're like, okay, what's working right now? Traders on Peacock, Secret Millionaire on Netflix, other shows that are reality where it's mind, it's gameplay and scheming. There's, Survivors on season gazillion.
Right.
Some things, there's only 6 types of people in the world. There's only 6 types of shows. You got to put a little bit of different approach, but on these things that are working today. I mean, the culture will tell you.
Yeah.
And of course, you want to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve, but ultimately, you got to believe if you have a good story that it's going to break through.
We've all had set stories about just the worst meals and different things like that. What's your most memorable on-set meal, good or bad?
was probably the one that I was in charge of. One of my very first jobs in LA, $50, craft service table, soft porn in the van. I went on the set a little bit, petrified. I went right back to that craft service table. That thing was clean, organized like this. We were constantly had red vine stacked. It was a scary, fascinating sort of welcome to California moment. Because at that point, you're just trying to get any kind of income.
Yeah.
You made the trip out here, manifest destiny. I remember my teacher in 7th grade, go west, young man. So here I am, following my dreams, not quite sure I'm going to pay rent. My friend calls me. You want to work on this? You want a job? And there you go. So my most memorable food experience on set is when I was in charge of the craft service table. Yeah.
That's nasty.
It was soft porn.
What do you think is the most misunderstood part about being an executive producer from the crew's point of view?
I mean, a lot of the crew's point of view is genuine. That a lot of people, a lot of executive producers don't have their interest in mind. A lot of executive producers have their own interest in mind and getting a shot in mind. So they don't have the crew's interest in mind when it comes to giving them a break or something. But I think the misunderstanding is that, well, no, I mean, that's some, but I always try to, make sure you have their interest in mind because you're not going to get your interest done if you don't get their interest. What am I talking about with all these things? How to dodge a question. Crew doesn't love executive producers? What are we talking about here?
We're brand new information to executive producers.
I mean, it's different that we know everything, that we don't know everything. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I think, in my opinion, I think the crew is not aware of all the other ancillary elements that your job includes, which is, in a lot of cases, as we've talked about, holding people's hands. Mm-hmm. And whether that be a talent, whether that be a network, whether that be a production company, whether it be a crew member themselves. All of those things are aspects that they're not, or they don't see sometimes when you're making a decision that bleeds into their break or makes them bring down a light, which you've already asked them to put up and bring down once before. Right. They don't understand that what happened behind the scenes was there was an accident or there was something and we just no longer can do this. They just look at it as, oh, you might not be organized, or you might not do it. So I think that their lack of understanding at times of the other side of a job, which is more, I guess, cerebral or more in a way that isn't a physical manifestation of it. I guess I don't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, look, in people in a certain crew, you're in a department, you're in the grip, you're in the cameras, you're in the production side, and they want to make sure their side of the street is clean, and you got to respect that. And oftentimes, just nature of the business, the executive producer has got a lot of masters to serve that he's protecting the crew from, protecting the talent from, or whatever.
Yep.
That not everyone has that visibility. It's not right or wrong. It's just the nature of the business, and things move fast.
Yeah.
But I will say, anyone coming up in the business, do every job. It certainly served me, I would say, as executive producer or showrunner or a producer on a show, to have done most jobs, to have done a craft service table, to have, worked in grip, be a stunt driver, work in audio, know that it takes sometimes 10 minutes to put a microphone on, or know that by asking someone to take that light down or put it back up or change your mind is going to add 45 minutes and also drive grief. So, when you know how long it takes for everyone to do their job, then it's easier to sort of get them to do their job and to know what's possible.
What advice would you give somebody starting off in our industry today, knowing how different our industry is today than when we came up?
Say yes till you have to say no. As ridiculous as that sounds. Take the job. Say yes. Are you interested in this? Yes. Until it becomes real, because there's so much that is not even real. Right?
Just say
there's
yes.
so many ideas. There's so many this. Do you want to do this? You want this job? Say yes.
That's... Yeah.
And then he who names price first loses. So let whoever negotiating say the first price.
Yep.
And that's it. Those are my two most important things. It goes back to, show up.
Yeah.
And take all those jobs, because then you're going to realize what you don't want to do and what you're good at.
We all have that moment where you're looking back, and it's whether you're in the car or you're in the shower, and you just can't get it out of your head. What's that most embarrassing moment you've had in our career where you're just like, I can't believe I did that?
I'm just going to go way back.
Okay.
I'm on stage.
Yeah, do it.
It's January. It's freezing cold out. It's in New York City. I'm playing the role of Prince Alexander. It's children's theater. I'm at the Grove Street Playhouse. I don't know any of my lines. I missed the final couple rehearsals. I had to go skiing, but they needed me to show up on that stage that day. And I went out there and I did everything I could. We made it to the end. And then at the end, we had to sing Happy Birthday to the kids. And that was never part of the deal. And I had to sing Happy Birthday. And I felt a little embarrassed. And that was the end of my acting career. I'm not kidding. I think I got back to my apartment that day. I said, I'm leaving New York City and I'm moving to LA. And enough of this. This is not working out for me. It's going the wrong direction.
What is your best personality trait that helps you with your job?
Next shot mentality.
Yeah.
There's only so much I can do to go back what happened. And, win-win. I try to consistently try to find win-win. It's got to be win-win. It's got to be good for you, the talent. It's got to be good for me. It's got to be good for you, the crew. Good for the network.
How have you kept...
And I don't focus on, there's a lot of people find the drama, find the issue. Well, if they get 10 emails, they'll find the one that feels like is a hot button problem and respond to that one first. I don't seek the drama. I mean, some people will create a little bit of drama and then solve it to make themselves feel important. I don't really care. I don't really want to feel important. I just try to focus on my best job, if I could say, is just next shot. Just try to.
How have you done that? How have you? I've done this for 25 years. So even including myself, I have met so many people that have become jaded. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only other guy besides you that didn't was Brad Tiemann, but that was because he was the nicest guy that ever lived too.
He's so handsome.
Right. I got to tell you.
He's called Handsome Brad.
That was the hardest part about being on The Buried Life. All of you were good looking,
yeah.
And I looked like I was hired to put oil on all of you or some shit. Like it was like so bad. But how did you?
Don't tempt me.
How have you kept such a positive attitude in what you're doing? Because even myself, I can't always do that. How have you been able to do that?
I'm fortunate. I feel thankful. Again, just getting. When I gave up acting, I said, however someone wants to pay me to be creative, I'm going to be happy with. It's like, what a gift. I used to write the back of basketball and football trading cards for Fleer and Skybox. And great. I would do research. Everything is just basically research.
Yeah.
And there's a chance for me to learn something. So I try to stay positive because I feel like these are opportunities. I learn more about basketball and hip hop, and Legally Blonde. I learn more about blonde females in Broadway, and Buck Wild. We learned about West Virginia. So you try to find something in there that appeals to you, and you go after it. And I don't know. I just can't get caught up. I'm not a behind the desk guy. I hate working in fear.
No, you move.
I hate working, like being afraid of something, and it doesn't work. And this is what I'm good at, and some things I'm not good at. That's fine. I mean, I remember. I don't get that starstruck or fearful with talent generally, but I'm up in San Francisco. We're shooting pickups for Holy Moly, season 4 with Stephen Curry. He doesn't have to be called Steph, and the Muppets. And our showrunner director,
I love the Muppets.
Great showrunner, really good visionary, couldn't go, so they sent me, the B team, and and I had to go meet Steph, and his handler's like, Steph's ready for you, and I that's one of the few times I took a deep breath because I'm such a big sports fan, and then I realized, he's a great basketball player, but I'm a good producer. We have a good creative script here, just go do your thing. I want him to be good. He wants me to be good. So I was still nervous, but I tried to tell myself that as I walked down the stairs, and it worked out. We had a great shoot.
That's awesome.
So just try to remind yourself that you're here for a reason.
Well, Adam, I want to thank you for coming in today. I want to thank you for everything. I want to
It's been a
appreciate you
blast.
giving me your time today. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. You have fun?
I appreciate it. Yeah, this is a cool show. I love copy you, it's letting the people speak.
Thank you.